All right, so welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a refreshing break. So we are now ideally we are going to start working um with our structural project. Okay, so that's where our main work is going to start. So we're assuming, for instance, we've gone ahead and looked through the architectural model as much as possible. And what we're going to do now is that we're now going to start off a structural project, which is going to deal with the arrangement of structural elements, such as our beams, our columns, our slabs, our shaft openings, staircases, as it may be. So what I am going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and close my architectural model. I'm just going to close it up. And then I've actually made some changes to this architectural model, but sorry about that. I had to attend to. Okay, yeah. So as I was saying, most of the time it's better that you do not make any changes. So I was the original author of this, so that's why I could go ahead and make changes. But if you do spot any let's say for instance issues in an architectural model, it is more professional to bring it to the attention of whoever created the design. So it's not the duty of the structural engineer to make changes to the architectural model, especially if he was not the one that made changes to it. So in this case, I'm just going to close it up, but I'm just going to neglect any change I made so far to it. Alright, good. So now I'm just going to go ahead now and create a new project. So we're now starting afresh. So at this point in time, I want to know if anybody is following along. Just let me know. If you have your Revit set up, just let me know in the chat box. If you have your Revit set up and you are following, just let me know. It's very important, so I'll be sure at any point in time if anybody is behind or needs explanation, I'll be glad to help out. So just let me know and I'll get a general feedback. Alright, so if you are following, you can just respond with either yes or no. Alright, so Ahmad said he's following. Alright, thank you. Felix said Felix gave a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, Wasike said he is following as well. Alright, great. Okay, so I'm just kind of going to wait for some more response. Okay, Razal said she's following. Alright, great. Okay. So, alright, thank you everybody for the feedback. I'll still expect more feedback as well. I do expect a majority of us to follow. So, just in case you do not have your Revit setup, please do make sure that you do. It's advisable that you have at least either a version between 2023, 2024, 2025 as it may be, but I do advise as much as possible to get the latest version. So if you are using 2025, or rather your system can support 2025, you can go ahead and actually download it. So I am actually using Revit 2024.2. I can actually prefer to use this version right now, but it means if you are using 2025 you can actually still open my file. Alright, so I got a response from Victor. Okay, sorry I joined in late because of an earlier class. Oh, that's fine. That's when you actually told me ahead of time, so that's okay. But if you do have Revit, you can, this is a great point to actually start following along. Anything that you might have missed will be provided in the recording later on. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead now and create a new project. So when you start off Revit for the first time, just as you are seeing, you're going to be seeing this screen over here. So we have two categories. We have here models, and then we have here families. We have models, which are basically project files, and then we have families, which could be something like, for instance, those doors and windows that I showed you earlier on. Alright, in this case here, I want to create a new project. So if I wanted to open one, I can go ahead and click on open and search my computer for a project. Now, the best way to identify a file that was saved in a Revit file type is that you see the file extension has .rvt at the end of it. So that's how to identify a Revit project file. Another way for you to identify another type of Revit file, which is the family, is that you see it does end with .rfa. That's the file extension. So those are the best ways for you to identify. Now to start off very quickly, I need to create a new Revit project file. So I'm going to go over here and click on new. Now at this point in time, another pro tip is that it's very essential that you go ahead and pick a very good project file to start off with, right? A project template rather to start off with. And the reason why I say so, for instance, is that if you don't pick a suitable project template, it's going to pose some issues later on for you. So we are going to be building off our own template. So I do expect quite a number of us are still going to be practicing, after the training, and we're going to use it for subsequent projects or wherever we're going to be working in. So building off a template is also part of this, or rather is included in this training. So under here, before going ahead and clicking on OK, you're going to see what we call template files. If I click on the drop down, depending on how your Revit was installed, you may see quite a few. So for instance, I see here interdiscipline, imperial multidiscipline, and we have here a metric multidiscipline, which are the two default templates if you installed Revit 2024. Under here, I see we have a structural analysis matrix defaults template, which is one I just loaded recently. If you wanted to, for instance, go and browse more templates, you can click on browse. You can also create templates as well, which is what we'll do later on. I'm going to click in this case here, browse. Now when I click on browse here, Revit will automatically take you to the folder where you can see more templates, for instance. So we see here that we have systems templates, which is useful for system designers. We have templates for plumbing service engineers. We have templates for electrical engineers, construction, commercial, all of this and so forth. But in this case, we want to look for something more suited towards us, our own discipline, which is structural work, which is the structural analysis default template. But before you go so fast and go and select one, you need to be sure that you are working with the right measurement system. So right now, this one here is set to imperial, English imperial. This one actually works in inches and feet. In this case here, I want to opt for the metric system. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on this option, which is the looking address. And where that particular template is installed by default is this directory. So you're going to see your computer, hard disk. You're going to see here program data, Autodesk, the version of Autodesk you are using. So for instance, because I am using Revit 2024, I am seeing RVT 2024. Then you want to locate here templates. So I'm going to click on templates. When I do that, I'm going to search for the folders. Now you are meant to select the folder that you, or the language that you work with. So in this case here, I'm going to look for English. So we have two English. We have English and then we have English Imperial. I'm going to select the normal English, which is this here. Then over here now, I'm not going to opt and look for the structural analysis template. So we have here, we have structural analysis default metric, and then we have structural analysis default metric. So one is up, one is RTE. In this case here, I'm going to use the default metric template. We also have another default template, which is GBRENU, which is for British and European standards. In this case, I prefer to use this default metric when I'm creating a template. You can actually decide to try either one of this and see which one works best for you. But I do advise that you go ahead and select this one. Another thing to pay note attention to is that templates have a file extension of RTE. So you see it has a file extension of .rte at the end of it. So once I've done that, I select this and then I click on open. If you do that correctly, you're now going to see that that highlighted template now shows under here. If I click on the drop down as well, you can also see that it is going to be here as well. Once I do that, I go ahead and make sure I select create a new project out of this project file that I've selected here, and I click OK. It's going to go ahead and load a new project, and now it has opened it up. Alright, so at this point I want to be sure everybody's following. So if you are following, let me know in the chat box. If you've done this, just let me know in the chat box. Okay, now we've actually gone ahead and created a new project, but we haven't saved it. A clear indication that we haven't saved it is that we can see here at the top of the screen here, this is labeled project 1. So any one that hasn't been saved, you can clearly see here that it will be labeled as project 1, or unsaved rather, unless you actually saved it as project 1. So now I'm going to go ahead and save the project. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create some views before saving it, and I'll show you the reason why we do that. And this is another pro tip as well. Now let's talk about creating views. Right now you can see that under 3D views we don't have a 3D physical view. So to create one, I'm just going to come over here and click on view, and then we see here under the create panel we have 3D view. I'm going to click on the drop down. We have some other options as well, such as to create a 3D view, a camera view, or a walkthrough. In this case, I want to create a default 3D view. Now in the 3D view, you can see every single element that you have modeled in the project. So right now we have nothing apart from the levels. Likewise as well, after creating a 3D view, I'm also going to create a sheet. Now this sheet over here is what I want to have as my cover page. I'm going to come over here under view again, and under sheet compositions I'm going to create sheets. So create a page for the document set. I'm going to click on this. So there are quite a number of title blocks. Now if you use this template, you're going to see this A1 metric. Let's just select it as default for now, then click OK to create the sheet. So we're going to see a sheet, and ideally what we can do is that we can go ahead and add views to this sheet, but that will be later on in this training. We can see as well the name of the sheet, as well as the sheet number, as well as the name of the sheet at the top. If I wanted to change it, I can come over here without selecting anything in this view by scrolling down. You see that we have sheet number. Well, what I want to do is I want to change the sheet name. I'm going to call this here cover page, and then click on apply. Now when I click on apply, you can now see that the name of the sheet has now been updated. And if I come into this view and right click and then click on find in project browser, you can as well see the sheet over here under the sheets category. Once I've done those two things, I'm now going to go ahead and save. Now to save a project in Revit, you can either do it like coming from here to the top of the screen where you have save. You can also use the shortcut Ctrl S, or I can click on file and then click on save. Okay, good. So when I do save, I can as well decide to go ahead and give it a name. In this case here, I'm going to give this here a name of the same type of name that I used for the architectural, but I'm going to attach structural, a hyphen and structural at the end of it. Before I do this, I'm going to show you guys how I expect everybody to do theirs as well. So if you do remember as well, just as I explained earlier during the onboarding process, everybody has their own projects folder. Inside the project folder, you see your logbook, and then you see a materials folder. Now over here, I have Google Sheets, or rather, I have Google Drive for desktop installed on my computer. So this enables me to sync my files from my computer to my Google Drive directly. Now if you don't have this, you can actually opt to use the web clients, but I do advise to use the Google Sheets, or rather sorry about that, the Google Drive for desktop feature. I'll also explain more details on how you can get that later on. But for now, if you are following and you don't have Google Drive or for desktop installed, you can just do it, save it to your local drive. But how I would expect everybody to do it as the training progresses, because we will be actually looking at your progress from your folder, is that you're going to go ahead and create a new folder inside your Google, your participants or students folder. So I'm going to go ahead and create one, and I am going to call this over here project folder. Okay, project folder. You want to make sure that it is as organized as possible. Inside that project folder, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to create another folder called structural. Let's call this here structural. So structural. You can actually name it how you see it fit, but as long as I understand it is quite fine. Now when I name it structural, right? Alright, I can now go ahead and save it into this folder. Okay, I can save it into this folder. Now that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to come back here into Revit, and I'm going to locate that particular folder. Now, if you have Google Drive for desktop, the advantage is that I can, for instance, go ahead here. I can locate the folder. You can see that I have Google Drive attached with my other local drives as well. If I do that, let me just quickly locate where it is. Alright, so in this case here, I'm going to look for this. Let's see, it should be on the. Alright, so so for me, this is how I can actually find it. Okay, that's how actually I can find it. But for you, you may not be able to see it like this, and the reason is because it's not your own drive; it's a shared folder. So I'll make a video on how you can actually go ahead and create a shortcut for the shared folder and find it the way I did. But for the sake of everybody that is following, you can actually decide to save it anywhere on your computer just for now, and you can just later go ahead and re-upload it. So over here now, for instance, here inside the project folder that I've created, I would expect everybody to save it inside the structural, right? So the structural. So once I've located the folder, I'm going to go ahead and give it a file name. So in this case, I'm going to call this here the LBS shopping. Let's call this filling station. Shopping complex. I want to indicate that it is a structural file. So I'm going to put here hyphen structural. And then another good habit as well is that after the hyphen, I can indicate the Revit version that I'm working with by putting an RVT, and I put here 2024. Now this is good practice because if you are sharing your model with other professionals, they will know exactly what version of Revit they can open it in. Now once I've done that, I can go over here before clicking on save, and this is another pro tip, and click on options. Under options, I can set the number of backups. The backups is exactly what we saw initially when we started this training. So if for instance I want to restore my model or project back to a previous version, I can set maximum backup so I can always recover it. In this case, we don't need so many backups, so I'm going to set it here to 1. Under here, we also have an option here for thumbnail preview. Now this is the reason why we created the cover page. So I want the thumbnail to always show as this cover page. So what I do is that I change the thumbnail preview here to the cover page, which is sheet 1. Now if you leave it on active view, depending on how you save your project, it will always take it as the last active view, but I always want it to be cover page. And this is actually professional because if you are sending your file to somebody, they can actually see very fast what the update on the project is by looking at the thumbnail. I'm also going to click on this regenerate if view is not up to date. So in case I save it again, that view or thumbnail will be regenerated. I'm going to save that as those options under options, and then click and save. Now the project is being saved. Just going to wait for it to load. Alright, good. So just as I explained, so right now if you don't have Google Drive for desktop, or rather I won't actually expect anyone to use Google Drive for desktop right now, you can just save that on your local disk. Now to show you exactly what has been done is that right now we can see here that I have saved it into my structural folder. If I decide to change this, for instance, here into maybe a large icon, you can see here that this is what is showing me as the thumbnail, right? So it is always going to show me that thumbnail of that view, and in case I place anything on the view and save it again, I will always be able to see exactly what the update is. Alright, good. Just going to change it back here to large icons. Don't want it too big. Alright, great. So now that we have created and saved the project, you can now visibly see it has been saved and now takes up the new name. Once I'm done, I can close the cover page. Now we need a reference. We are not working with CAD drawings or PDF files in this case. So we are working with a Revit model, which is the architectural model. We need to have some sort of reference before we can decide where we can place our structural elements. So what I'm going to do in this case here is I'm going to load that Revit architectural model inside my structural model. To do that, we are going to be talking about what we call links. At this point here, let me just pause and ask, and if you are following, just let me know in the chat box. Let me just know if you are following the chat box. All right. Okay, so Vivian has a hand. Okay. All right. So yeah, Vivian, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Or was that a significant? Was that a yes? Okay. All right. I think that was a yes. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So yeah, everybody's following. All right. That's great to hear. Okay. Now let's go ahead and load that in. So if I come over here to manage, under manage here, I see the option here called manage links under the manage project box over here. I go over here and click on manage links, and you can see that Revit is a very vast software. So I'm not only restricted to just linking architectural models, I can also link in CAD files, topography information, images, PDF as it may be. You can see that they have the respective tabs for all of those as well. But in this case, I'm going to start with a Revit file. So I'm going to go to the Revit tab, and under here I'm going to click on add. So when I click on add now, I'm now going to locate where I have my architectural model. So to locate the architectural model in this case here, all I'm going to do is that I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to locate that's my project folder. All right. Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to locate my students folder rather, and I'm going to go over here to materials. Just going to wait for that to load. Okay. Then under the materials, I'm going to look for the shopping plaza project. So I'm going to open that up, and then I go over here to architectural, and then I select the one with the version that I'm using, or rather any version that I support. So I'm going to select this 2021 version. Now, if you are doing this right now, I would advise that you go ahead and download this file, since you don't have the shortcuts that leads to your Revit folder based. That's if you're actually doing this right now, if you don't have Google Drive for desktop. So what you could do is you can go to your web browser or wherever you're using it and download the file so you can use, so you can save it to your local disk. So once I've selected it like this, I can now go ahead here and specify the positioning. Now I want the same position from the architectural to be the same position from my my structural as well. So I'm going to leave it for position here set to internal origin to internal origin. Once I've done that, I click on open. All right. And then I can now see here that it has been loaded. Okay. So for me to finish off this, I have to just go ahead and then click on OK, and then that loads it into the project. Right. So you can see that we have an incomplete detail over here, but we're going to work about how we can manage this better. At this point here, I believe maybe some of us may be downloading it, so I'm just going to wait a while and see. All right. Okay. Victor has a hand. Okay. Victor, you can ask a question.
Hello, I would like the folder access to be reshared because I think we only have access to the log file.
Okay. Or you don't have
Not
access
to
to
the
it?
folder. Yeah,
Or
exactly.
let me quickly check. No, I believe everybody has access to it. Let me quickly check that. All right. So just go to the materials folder and try to download it. Okay. I would also confirm as well if everybody has access. Yes, so everybody does have access to it. So all you need to do is go to your students folder, and then go to the what I mean. Yeah, so go to the materials folder, and then go ahead into the shopping plaza projects. Then inside 01 architectural, you will see the models. So let me just quickly illustrate that as well. All right, so this is it over here. All right, so assuming for instance this over here is your folder, all you need to do is come here, you see the materials. So all you need to do is open it up, and then you see here shopping plaza project, so you open it like this, then open up 01, and then you see here the version that you want. So if you're using 2022, 2023, or 2024, you can actually go ahead and choose whichever one you want. So once you've selected it, you can just go over here and then click on download. So that downloads the file. So that's what you'll be using to link into your architecture. Alright, so it's quite a small file, so it shouldn't take so much time to download. So I believe this is very vital. So if everybody has done that, just let me know. Or rather, if anybody has done that, let me know. Alright, so probably while we wait for this, I'll probably take, let's say, a 3 minutes break, and in the process of doing that, if you have done that, you've successfully downloaded and linked your model just like I have, just say I am following in the chat box.